Alrighty. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Career Catapult podcast. I want to do something a bit different in today's episode. I want it to be a little bit of fun. I feel like we're usually so serious. Your career is a very serious thing. But I thought today we could take a lighthearted approach to a career conversation. Recently I found myself commuting quite a bit. I'm in a season of life that involves a bit of commute. And I've always done my best thinking really three places. Number one is by water, number two, running, and number three, behind the wheel. And it occurred to me recently how very similar driving on a 7-lane highway and navigating your corporate career can be. And I wanted to draw some of those similarities here for you in this episode. I have 10 points that I jotted down, and literally all of these 10 came to me while I was driving. I was like, each time I drove, I found one more correlation that I thought would make this an interesting episode. So I'm going to share with you again how you can be making decisions in your career and what you can learn from driving, right, in making those decisions. Now, most people think of their career as just staying in their lane. They pick a lane, okay, and they stay in that lane and they just keep going. They pick a lane, they lock in to the car that's in front of them and follow that car's speed. And they call it going with the flow of traffic, right? They follow that car speed and they just go with that car. So that car really determines their ETA because they're locked in behind that one car. And that, to them, that's progress. And that's what most people do. So that's the default. And ask yourself if that's what you're doing, right? Where you are just locked into the car in front of you and you're just following it and seeing where it leads, seeing how far it wants to take and seeing where it leads. Okay. And so it occurred to me that when you're driving in a 7-lane highway, you're usually assessing. You're not just in that lane, you're assessing the lane to the left, to the right, to see what may be happening there, because that's how you make decisions. And the same is true of your career. Okay. You have to be assessing the lanes around you. Where is their momentum? Where are things slowing down? Where is something else opening up? Right? You have to be assessing in your career just like you would on the road. So I want to share with you, as you do the assessment, what are some of those decisions that might lead you to make in the same way that you would make decisions while you're driving. Okay. So I have 10 of these. I jotted these down, and they all came to me again while I was actually driving. So number one, sometimes you need to jump lanes, right? I think this one goes without saying. Sometimes you need to jump from one lane to another. You got to jump a couple lanes to get to where you want to go. Because as it turned out, you may have thought this one lane was the right lane, but then the car in front of you stalls, and so now effectively you're behind a parked car, right? One of our clients a while ago came up with that phrase of your manager can be a parked car and you're behind that manager, right? And this is an important thing. When people think about taking a job, they often don't think about their manager's profile. They just think about the job. But one of the things I invite you to do is to assess your manager's profile. If you have a manager, for instance, who has been in the same job for the last 15 years, same level, same job, nothing has changed, that manager is far less likely to be a strong champion, a strong advocate for a rapid promotion for you. Not saying it can't happen or that it doesn't happen, but it's unlikely. Okay. In fact, I remember a client that we had a while ago who had been in her role for about 2 years. And one of the things that we do in our program, as a matter of course, right, as you go through the course, is that it does invite you at a certain point to initiate a conversation with your manager about your promotion. So she was doing that. And her manager said to her, I mean, he was completely shocked. He said to her, I wasn't envisioning a promotion for you for another like 4 or 5 years. And so I asked her, I'm like, well, tell me about this manager. Well, it turns out this person been in the business 20 years, same job, nothing has changed, right? So it's not all that surprising, is the point, right? So sometimes you need to jump lanes because the car in front of you has stalled. And it's not even just your manager's promotion, like it's also how your manager is perceived. Your manager might be seen as this SME. Your manager may be seen as someone who's not upwardly mobile, who leadership doesn't really respect, or doesn't hold in high regard, or doesn't have the level of influence that their peers do. All of the stuff matters. You got to be paying attention. You can't just be looking at your own situation, what's happening in your own car, right? You're the comfort of your own nice air-conditioned car. You have to be looking at the car in front of you, to the right and to the left, and, to be able to see what to do. So that's number one. Number two, sometimes you need to accelerate to get out of a slow cluster. Okay. Sometimes you need to accelerate to get out of a slow cluster. You might be driving the speed limit. You might be driving, I'm in Dallas, right? So I don't know. People are driving like 90, 100. So I don't know, right? But you might be driving a speed limit, and you might find that you need to accelerate to get out of a slow cluster because it's a bit overcrowded. There's a lot of people moving really slow in the first couple of lanes. So you have to not only jump lanes, but you have to accelerate to give yourself some room, right? To be able to maneuver. Speed is a decision. You get to decide when to speed up and when to slow down. Okay, let's go to number three. Number three goes in line with that. Sometimes you slow down on purpose to merge. Sometimes you slow down on purpose to merge. This is really crucial, okay? One of the risks to your brand as a leader, especially as a high achiever, especially as an upwardly mobile leader, this is something I had to deal with, is that you can end up being seen as somebody who is too opportunistic, okay? By that, I mean, you are not seen as collaborative. You're seen as somebody who's just out for themselves. She's just out for the promotion. She just is looking for the fastest path to the top, right? When that starts to become your brand, it can hurt because now certain people in the business see you as someone who's not actually here to grow the business or to put the business in the best possible position. You really are just out for yourself. And what I coach our clients, and I tell you guys as well, is that you want to be very opportunistic, but appear collaborative. You want that combo. Okay. Otherwise it can be detrimental. And so that's where this comes in. Sometimes when you're merging, you got to slow down. You got to slow down so that you don't cause, an accident. You don't cause unnecessary friction in a bid to join something, right? So sometimes you got to slow down on purpose to merge so you can merge gracefully and cleanly. All right. Number four, sometimes you try a lane and you realize this ain't it. This is not it. Okay. So here you are in your current lane, everything's going well. And then you decide, well, let me go to this other lane because that might be interesting. And then you do that and you realize after a little bit of time that this is not what you thought it was going to be. Perhaps you were oversold on something, or you didn't ask enough questions, or things just didn't pan out the way that you hoped that they would. Okay. And so one of the things that you can do is you can boomerang. We see clients do this all the time. You can boomerang to the company that you were in before. So you were in lane one, you went to lane two, you did that for a little bit, you realize that wasn't it, you move back to lane one, right? You can do that. And that's not, you haven't failed. Sometimes people think, oh, I've failed. No, you haven't failed. In fact, most of the time, if you play your cards right, you will end up in a much more, a much farther along than you would have been had you stayed in that lane. Okay. So a boomerang is something that is very available to you, right? But it doesn't just happen. These are all decisions. Notice what all of these have in common, by the way. There's no inertia here, right? These are decisions that you're making. You're deciding, I'm going to do this instead, right? There's no autopilot. You are intentional. You're choosing. And that's the whole point. Okay. Number five, sometimes you take an exit and you take the streets. Sometimes you decide, you know what? I would like to take a more scenic route. I'm actually in a season where I'm not in that much of a hurry right now. Sometimes, this will be a client who says, I'm preparing to go on maternity leave, or there's maybe a health challenge in my family or something like that, right? And so for whatever personal reason, you can decide, no, I'm good here. I'm going to take the scenic route. I'm going to slow down. I'm going to go a little bit differently than I've been going the last several years. And it's a bit of a slow down to speed up, right? And so, yeah, sometimes you can take an exit, take the streets, right? Maybe you have a few stops you'd like to make. You're not actually going a straight shot. You want to stop over there. You want to stop over there. You want to stop over there. So you can do that. This is your career. This is your car. You can make those decisions. Okay. Number six, sometimes you ignore the GPS. Sometimes, now I don't do this. Okay. This one, some of you do, but I am very committed to the GPS. Okay. I will live in a place. I've been in Dallas now for about 4 years, and I still use my GPS. But sometimes you can ignore the GPS if you're someone who you're not the average driver, right? This is not your first rodeo. You know the ropes. In fact, you know better shortcuts, you know a better route than what the GPS generally takes you on. So sometimes you can ignore the GPS. Number 7, sometimes a cop car or an ambulance comes along and clears the road. Okay, there's a bit of a traffic jam. A cop car comes, an ambulance comes, they clear the road. When that happens, if you're positioned properly, you don't hesitate, you follow, right? And then you are able to get to open road a lot faster. The same is true in your career. A sponsor, an opportune moment, right? A high visibility opportunity. Something happens, you get behind it, and you let that pull you forward faster than you would have been able to go on your own. This is why I tell our clients, right? As you build relationships and you're doing all of this work, at some point, a very senior leader might say to you, what's next for you? What do you want to do? What do you enjoy about the work that you're doing? Where else do you want to play in the business? When I hear, like, first of all, I engineer my career to have those questions asked of me, right? At first they were happenstance, and I was like, okay, now I know what I need to do and how to navigate my relationships to get those questions asked. But when you hear people start asking you those questions, that is a signal. That's a signal. And a lot of people squander the opportunity. They go in there unprepared. They don't know. They're, I kind of want to do this, or I kind of want to do that. And they have no idea. And it's a missed opportunity. In the same way, when the cop car comes along with a siren blaring and then people are the road is parting, you follow safely, of course, right? So that you can get where you're going faster. Okay. So it's about knowing, anticipating, and then being ready when it happens. Number 8, you have blind spots. Okay, just like you would in a car, you have blind spots. Although now they make cars that can signal you when things are in your blind spot. But in your career, we don't quite have those signals, right? And so you have to pay even more attention. You have to have a coach or an expert or someone who is walking with you, who can say, hey, watch out for this. Hey, based on your what you and I have talked about, I think you should be concerned about that, right? That's what a blind spot is. And no matter how good you are, there are things that you don't see. There are things that you don't see, how you're perceived, where you're misaligned, how you've been put on the bench and didn't even know it, what's coming up beside you, right? These are in your blind spot. And in the same way that if you don't watch out for your blind spot, you can end up causing, a serious situation. The same is true in your career. So it's about knowing that you have blind spot, and it's not whether or not there's a blind spot. There is a blind spot, right? In the car, like you have a blind spot. There's no guessing. It's there. So as you're sitting there right now, listen to me, know that you have blind spots in your career. Question is, what will you do about them? Right? What will you do about them? All right, couple more. Number 9, not every fast lane is going where you want. I had to learn this one recently. Okay. I saw a lane open up on the road and I'm like, okay, let's go. Turns out, oh, that's an exit only lane. And now I'm trying to get back in, right? I'm in this in between where it's like, oh, and I have to decide, do I just exit or do I become a lump on the road, right? So not every fast lane is going where you want to be going. And really, speed doesn't matter as much if the direction is wrong. If the direction is not where you want to go, it's like climbing up the wrong ladder. You're going really quick, you're racing to nowhere, right? So it's really about knowing not just how fast the lane is moving, but is it even going where I want to go? Okay, is that even happening? All right, last but not least, my favorite. None of this works if you run out of gas. Thankfully, I've not had this happen, knock on wood. Okay, none of this works if you run out of gas. This is your energy, your health, your capacity. If you let those go, I mean, you'll end up being a sitting duck, right? So you have to refuel. You have to check your fuel gauge. You have to know these days, again, you can look at your car and it tells you how many more miles you can drive without refueling. You have to be managing that. Okay. And a lot of people aren't doing that. They wait until they're on E. They wait until they have no capacity. Right. And then it's like this sensation of, I can't do this anymore. and they burn down everything they built. You want to be more intentional than that. You cannot run out of gas. You can't let your health go. You can't let your energy go. Okay. So again, most people stay in their lane, hoping for things to change. But I want you to see that your job is not to stay in your lane. Your job is to get where you're going intact. Godspeed.